the women who believe like Emily Saves America, like the blonde girl, they don't have any problem putting standards on men. She said men should go out and work. But when it comes to what women should do, now it's like, what do you mean? What we should do? We should do whatever makes us happy.
Right.
Well, here's my problem, and I don't want to confuse any other people. Does that mean I'm not one of those people that believe that women should never work? Even the Bible in Proverbs 31 woman, she is a working woman. That don't mean she work full time, but her priority is the household. And everything she does is to cater to the household first. Whereas everything the man does is typically outside the household to bring in resources, protection, and provisions for the household.
You notice they both have a responsibility beyond themselves.
Yes.
They're not just pursuing their own private personal happiness.
Yes.
They're following God's direction for them. And they happen to be following it in God's marriage. They had singles back then.
Yeah.
They had responsibilities too. And in fact, the New Testament tells us that your responsibility as a single man or woman, you are more freer to follow God. You don't have those responsibilities of family that are taken away from your responsibilities with God. So
and it's funny that this girl got a lot to say about this other married woman, but she's shacking up with her man and she's unmarried and they living together now with their little fur baby dogs. So it's like you not really your man couldn't even reach out enough to you to put a ring on your finger, but you want to tell somebody else that their husband is gay. I think that's pretty petty. That's kind of like catty.
It is.
I think that you go say something.
Oh yeah, we've got some comments on
Go ahead.
So this has been some spirited commentary going on in the chat here.
Uh-oh.
Women keep women single.
There's some truth to that. Single women keeps women single. And misery loves company.
And then we had an affirmation, so true. And then we get, we're either slaves to sin or God.
True.
Followed up by feminism is the work of the devil.
It is. It is a work of the devil. True because that. It wants to, it's trying to turn...
divisiveness.
Yes.
Dividing male and female. Satan's old trick from the Garden of Eden.
Yeah. That's where it started. Right, that's where feminism started.
It really did. So it's nothing new.
Yeah, feminism started in the
garden. But it is divisive. And yeah.
And I think it's just crazy when you look at a woman like that when she says that she has these duties for men, but nobody. And Andrew Wilson pointed this out, and I like you watched some of his stuff too before. He pointed this out, and it's one of his greatest arguments, in my opinion, is what duties do women have, and that's the same thing that the world is running from now. Men are expected. We're expected to provide for the household. We expected to work. We expected to go out and protect. In fact, any man who does not do those things will be called all types of names nowadays. You can be called a deadbeat dad. You can be called a weak man. You can be called a zesty dude if you scared to protect your wife. But when it comes to women's duties, nobody wants to talk about that. And I do think a woman is in a marriage has a duty to submit. She has a duty to look after the kids. She has a duty to do womanly things, to make a house a home. She has a duty to do that. And I think that women don't like to talk about those duties that they have to do because freedom trumps that to them. The feminism ideology that you are now free to do whatever makes you happy trumps the fact of, yeah, you do have a duty to listen to your husband. You should obey your husband as unto the Lord. And that's not even that's not debatable. That phrase is like super strong. Obey, not just obey your husband, obey him as unto the Lord. Yeah. Like, so it's crazy to think that some of these things have gotten so out of whack that now even saying that in today's day is controversial. You can't even say that. Like, you know this as a pastor.
Yeah.
How many pastors are scared to talk about submission when it comes to women? They don't have no problem talking about a man and what he should do, but then when it comes to submission, a lot of pastors, and I've seen a lot of spiritual leaders shy away. Oh, well, we're supposed to submit to each other. You know, I don't want to. Oh, you don't. A man shouldn't be abusive. They'll talk all day about that. But when it comes to, and this is why I appreciate our church, because we don't shy away from none of this stuff. I've never seen you shy when preaching at the pulpit away from things simply because it is controversial or not the flavor of the day. And that's why I 100% put up my stamp of approval on our church, because when the word of God is talked about, we are not the type to be like, well, that's not popular. We say what the truth is.
Well, I think one of the things that kind of guides that men being softer is when your character doesn't line up with what the
Yeah.
word of God says. You said men have certain responsibilities God has given them. When you're not living that way,
True.
then you're gonna every man live for himself kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything about you if you don't say anything
You
about
can't
me.
make that demand if you're not being a
Right,
real man.
right. You can't stand up
Yeah.
on the demands of God
Yeah.
if you're not living them.
How
And
can
so
I
that's
tell
what
why? Because
happens.
all these men will make a joke of, oh, my wife can make me a sandwich. You can't tell your wife to make you a sandwich if you ain't got no job. You know, if you ain't doing what's providing, protecting, how you gonna
Right.
tell her what she better do? You got to be the man and the leader of your household. Yes, you do have to do that. You have to demand respect by your actions and your character.
So in that sense, it starts with men. And so
Yeah.
even in our church, you'll see a lot of us addressing that as starting with men because
True.
of how that's fundamental.
Yeah.
Right. Then after that, you can reach down to
Mhm.
the women and their responsibilities. So I do a lot of talk with men more so than women. It's like I don't have to put women in a place
Yeah.
because when you
Most of the
teach
time, when the
men,
man is in alignment, the woman will follow. Most of the time, there's a rebellion,
oh yeah,
but most of the time, when I see that a man is getting on his purpose of following God, finding God's will in his life, and trying to be obedient, it's in women's nature to follow the man.
yeah, it almost just comes natural.
Uh-huh.
It's not a natural thing. It's a godly thing, is what it is. But when you line up, when you align yourself, you see that alignment
Yes.
following in your family.
Yes, and that's
And
why,
that's what
like,
it's saying.
you can come down on women pretty harshly, but it's really hard to do when every time I go online, I see some weak man talking about how beautiful a promiscuous woman is. It's like, well, it's gonna be hard to correct her now because all these weak men are out there encouraging it.
Right.
So
right.
I understand what you're saying too.